bona tarda a tothom. En nom dels organitzadors, que som l'Institut Europeu de la Mediterrània, el Club de Roma i la Fundació La Caixa, els voldríem donar la benvinguda i agrair la seva assistència. I donar també la benvinguda al trio de luxe que ens acompanyen avui per parlar sobre com les ciutats mediterrànies estan fent esforços o han de fer esforços per adaptar-se al canvi climàtic, que són el moderador i director de MedCités, l'Oriol Barba, la excomissionada per l'Agenda 2030 de l'Ajuntament de Barcelona i actualment directora general de Barcelona Regional, la Bàrbara Pons, i l'assessor de l'Ajuntament d'Izmir, el Mert Türken. Pretty well, hopefully. En tot cas, agrair-vos molt la seva presència. No em pertoca a mi, i més tenint en compte els ponents que tenim avui, que són realment de luxe, tenint en compte més que aquests dies la ciutat de Barcelona està acollint el Congrés Mundial de Smart Cities, per tant hem fet coincidir aquest diàleg amb aquest esdeveniment d'abast mundial, en una temàtica que potser alguns diran bé, però això està molt localitzat a la regió mediterrània. Però pensin vostès que la regió mediterrània està doblement impactada per aquesta temàtica que avui posem a debat. Per una banda, perquè el canvi climàtic s'està accentuant i s'està exacerbant d'una manera molt més acusada, com demostren els informes de l'IPCC, els informes de MEDEC, però en segon lloc també perquè la regió mediterrània en el seu conjunt i sobretot la Ribera Sud està vivint un procés d'urbanització accelerada. Tenim països, i això tant l'Oriol com el representant de la ciutat d'Izmir ho podran explicar molt millor, però tenim països com Egipte o Turquia en què els últims anys hi han viscut un procés accelerat d'urbanització condicionat per molts factors, pel factor climàtic, per factors d'idiosincràsia socioeconòmica i, per tant, el repte al qual aquestes ciutats han d'afrontar, també Barcelona, lògicament, per la seva situació geogràfica i per les seves condicions meteorològiques, és doble. En tot cas, no m'enrotllo més i ara sí, els hi torno a donar per tercera vegada la benvinguda i cedeixo la paraula al ponent de la sessió d'avui, el director de MedCities, l'Oriol Barba. Gràcies.
Bona tarda a tothom. Benvinguts al Palau Macaia i moltes gràcies tant a la Fundació La Caixa com a l'IEMed per convidar-me a moderar aquesta sessió. Faré una introducció molt breu en català als continguts de la sessió i després, si els sembla, canviarem a l'anglès perquè de cara al debat amb els ponents facilita una mica la feina parlar els tres al mateix idioma. Saben vostès que tenen traducció i interpretació automàtica simultània al català o al castellà. Com deia, benvinguts a aquesta sessió que es titula Àrees urbanes, com les ciutats mediterrànies innoven per gestionar el canvi climàtic. I tenim avui amb nosaltres representants de dues ciutats que tenen molt en comú. Pels que potser no coneguin tant la ciutat d'Izmir, és una ciutat que té molts elements en comú amb la ciutat de Barcelona. És possible que alguns de vostès, quan parlem de ciutats turques, tinguin al cap, evidentment, la gran Istanbul, que és una megalòpolis que està en un altre nivell, o potser la ciutat d'Ankara, però Izmir és una ciutat que per molts motius culturals, històrics, sociopolítics, té un cert paral·lelisme amb Barcelona. És una ciutat que d'alguna manera mira el Mediterrani des de l'altra banda, una ciutat que no és la capital del seu estat, però que sí que sempre té un pes molt important en tot el que és la innovació, el dinamisme i podríem dir que és un dels motors socioeconòmics de Turquia. El seu alcalde, el senyor Tunçoyer, és una personalitat política de molta rellevància dins de la política turca i diríem també dins de les relacions euromediterrànies. I la composició de les ciutats, els reptes que afronta i la manera com ho fa que sigui molt pertinent aquesta trobada amb, en aquest cas, la senyora Bàrbara Pons, directora de Barcelona Regional, però fins fa molt poc també comissionada de l'Ajuntament de Barcelona per l'Agenda 2030 i els projectes estratègics. En la sessió d'avui, perquè les paraules sovint tenen connotacions importants, tractarem el tema de l'adaptació al canvi climàtic i el paper que hi juguen les ciutats. En el llenguatge especialitzat, quan parlem de dos grans conceptes en relació al canvi climàtic. Un seria la mitigació i l'altre seria l'adaptació. La mitigació al canvi climàtic és aquelles accions que van orientades a retrasar o a frenar precisament aquest procés de canvi climàtic i, per tant, totes aquelles polítiques que van orientades a la reducció d'emissions i, per tant, a evitar que es produeixi aquest escalfament global que és causa del canvi climàtic. L'adaptació al canvi climàtic recull totes aquelles mesures que tenen per objectiu que els efectes que aquest canvi climàtic produeix tinguin un impacte menor en les persones i en els ecosistemes. Per tant, és una aproximació al fenomen que el que fa és reconèixer que aquest fenomen es dona, des d'algunes posicions més extremes es pot dir que és imparable i que, per tant, el que cal fer és prendre mesures perquè les ciutats i les ciutadanies puguin desenvolupar les seves vides tot i l'efecte que el canvi climàtic es produeix. Dins del món especialitzat, aquest debat entre adaptació i mitigació és un tema molt rellevant, inclús que aixeca passions, i segurament les solucions que les ciutats implementen, com veurem aquesta tarda, passen per una combinació dels dos elements, per centralitzar-se en la reducció d'emissions, però al mateix temps prendre aquelles mesures que fan que la vida a les ciutats continuï sent sostenible i acceptable per tots nosaltres. Tot i que aquest és una mica el nucli, si voleu, teòric de la sessió d'avui, el que voldríem és generar un espai de debat i d'intercanvi. Es tracta d'una sessió que és la quarta en aquest cicle de 6 diàlegs que està orientada a la ciutadania del seu conjunt i, per tant, que és oberta a tothom. I el que busquem també és rebre els seus comentaris i les seves preguntes i poder conèixer una mica més de prop. Per tant, quan obrim el torn de preguntes, que no serà molt enllà en el que és el desenvolupament de la sessió, els convido a ajudar a fomentar aquest debat que ens pugui enriquir tots de manera satisfactòria. I pel que fa als meus companys de sessió, el que hem intentat preparar és que les seves presentacions, almenys les presentacions inicials, se centrin en solucions tangibles i possibles que ja s'estan implementant o que tenen previst implementar a les dues ciutats, que ens poden servir d'exemple per posar en context tant el que passa a Barcelona com també les grans agendes globals, com pot ser el Pacte Verd Europeu, com pot ser l'Agenda 2030, com aquests grans acords mundials es traslladen a l'acció local. Per tant, intentarem ser el més concrets possible perquè vostès puguin conèixer aquestes solucions en el curt termini i puguin interpel·lar també els ponents en relació a com això es desenvolupa, com és factible que solucions que es donen en un lloc es puguin reproduir en un altre i d'alguna manera generar un espai de coneixement conjunt. Deixin-me, abans de començar el debat, explicar que jo soc l'Oriol Barba, director de MedCities, que MedCities és una xarxa d'ajuntaments de la Mediterrània que agrupa una 80ena d'ajuntaments de 16 països diferents, que es va crear aquí a Barcelona l'any 1991 i que té la seva seu a Barcelona, a l'àrea metropolitana de Barcelona, i que treballa a través de projectes tangibles perquè es generi coneixement que altres ciutats puguin aprofitar. I, per tant, nosaltres som uns convençuts que a través de conèixer el que els altres fan i el que els altres han fet bé i també allà on els altres s'han equivocat, doncs les ciutats i els ajuntaments poden aprendre tant a no repetir errors que altres han comès com a la vegada implementar solucions que poden ser interessants també per la ciutadania de cadascuna d'elles. Som uns convençuts d'aquest mètode i també en la segona part de les preguntes els hi preguntaré als dos representants com aquest coneixement compartit, com el viuen i com a les seves ciutats desenvolupen acció internacional per tal d'aprendre-la. Si ningú hi té inconvenient, passaria ara a l'anglès per començar a la presentació. Thank you very much for your participation in this event, and let me follow up on what Roger Albinyana did and introduce the two speakers that we have today. The structure of the session will be the following. We will get a first round of presentation by the two speakers between 10-15 minutes to give an overview of the actions that both cities are implementing in the field of adaptation to climate change. In the case of Izmir, we will have a first introduction as well, a bit of the reality of the city, because maybe some of you are not familiar with the reality of the city of Izmir, so we asked Mert also to give a very quick overview of the situation of the city and to introduce you to the city. Then, after those two presentations, I will try to break the ice with some questions that we prepared in order to foster the debate. And after this set of questions, I would invite the audience to participate in the debate, to make your comments on your questions in order to make the session as fruitful as possible. The objective is to close the session at 7:30 p.m. So we have ahead of us almost 1 hour and 15 minutes of discussion. So to start with, I will give the floor to Mrs. Barbara Pons. As we said, Barbara is the recently appointed CEO of Barcelona Regional. Barcelona Regional is a public agency responsible for strategic urban planning of the City Council of Barcelona and the metropolitan area, so it is already an institution, and I think that this is relevant for what we are discussing today, that in its governance it has a part of a municipality, but also the metropolitan dimension, and this is very linked to the developments that cities like Barcelona and Izmir are undertaken. Barbara is an architect, PhD in urban planning and master in landscape architecture by the Graduate School of Design at Harvard University, and has held many responsibility positions both in the private sector and the public sector. Thanks a lot, Barbara, for being with us this evening, and you have the floor for the next 5 to 10 minutes for the first round of presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Oriol, and it's a pleasure for me being in this fantastic building, discussing a topic that is really one of my passions, the cities and the Mediterranean. And thank you very much, the audience, for being here, and to IEMed to have the opportunity to participate in these dialogues. Thank you, Roger. So to begin, and before presenting how Barcelona is facing heat with nature, and go to more adaptation solutions, as Oriol introduced previously, let me frame a little bit what Barcelona is doing in order to tackle climate change in general. And I would like to frame these actions in 3 scales, because I think it's relevant to understand the world we live in, how Barcelona wants to find a place in the world, not only in its regional environment. So one of the important things that Barcelona does and is very aware of is that Barcelona has been a pioneer, at least since the 19th century, with the Cerdà Plan and all the enlargement of the city as a city that has been at the avant-garde of the urban planning and environmental also decisions as a city. And since then, we have been doing things that have really been observed and analyzed by the rest of the cities in the world, the Olympic transformation, the 22 districts, now more recently the super block strategy. So we take very seriously how we do things, we analyze things, we share that with other cities, and we think that is very relevant for Barcelona, both to share these issues with cities, and of course we do that in the European environment, but especially the larger Mediterranean environment is very relevant for us. Why? Because we know we are embarked in this climate change process. We know from the last IPCC report that the Mediterranean environment is warming up 20% faster than the rest of the world. So all the Mediterranean cities we are facing the same conditions, very more and more hotter summers, severe droughts. Here in Barcelona right now, we know if it doesn't rain by the end of the month, we will enter the emergency state of drought. It's the third year in a row that rains very little in Barcelona. So that has a lot of implications for the city and for the citizens. So in this larger context, we think it's very relevant to understand that we play a role in the global scene, and it's very important to help each other, because it makes no sense if we concentrate in our adaptation measures, but the rest of the cities of the world don't also work in the same direction. Especially those cities, as Oriol was mentioning, in the southern and eastern parts of the Mediterranean that are, it was Roger, sorry, who said that are experiencing a big growth, population growth, especially in the other two continents, because we, as you know, the Mediterranean region is in between 3 continents, so it's a very complex region for that cause also. So we have cities that will even double population in 20, 30 years, and they are facing the same problems as us with less infrastructure and less capacity. So we really need to build these bonds between all Mediterranean cities. So I again think it's a great opportunity to have this discussion today for that reason. We also, as Oriol mentioned, this week is the Smart City Expo week. This, for those of you who are not aware, this expo began as a smart cities for technology and smart initiatives for cities, but it has evolved as a very interesting meeting place for cities. Governments from many cities come to Barcelona and we share experiences between cities. It's a very interesting networking place. Many networks of cities come together, take the opportunity of this event. And there is also a think tank, a congress, which many of the issues that are common to cities take place. I heard this sentence, I think it's very accurate. Cities are where policy meets people. So really we are at the forefront of the political scene, no matter what competence the cities have. One example is the housing emergency. Many of the policies linked to housing, they are not within the municipal capacities to change them. They are at the national level or at the regional level, but the problems of the citizens are they arrive to the mayors of the cities, and that is so in Izmir or in Barcelona. So we have very well identified which are the main problems of our cities today. And again, with climate change, it's the same. We have many issues related to climate change. I will enter that topic in a moment. Some of them depend on policies that are defined, that can be local, but also regional, at state level, also European level. And I think we take all these policies and all these problems also on our shoulders, because we know in the end, citizens in cities is where you really find the reality of these very abstract policies. I will get to that in a moment. So this global scene for Barcelona is very important to kind of to share and learn together in this topic. Also, the metropolitan scale. We know many of the challenges that we will be discussing in a moment. The good scale to tackle them, for example, mobility, is a question of a metropolitan range. Barcelona, for those of you who don't know, it's a small municipality, only 100 square kilometers, 1.6 million people, but really very tiny piece of land compared to Izmir, which is how? 12,000 square kilometers. Izmir is like bigger than the province of Barcelona. And so we are very tiny, and we are connected to all the municipalities nearby. So the solutions have to come from a larger perspective. So the metropolitan perspective, very relevant for any issues related to climate change, and also the local perspective, neighborhood by neighborhood, different neighborhoods, different problems and aspects. So these 3 levels to tackle the solutions, to discuss problems are very relevant for the City Council of Barcelona. Also, mitigation versus adaptation. We, Barcelona, also are working very hard with the European Union in one mitigation mission. It's called the European Commission launched this 100 smart and carbon neutral cities by 2030. We know in the European context, all Europe, all cities have to be carbon neutral which means no more burning fossil fuels by 2050. But this mission is trying to accelerate in 100 cities within the European Union to do it faster by 2030. So we accepted this challenge with other 6 Spanish cities, and we are working very closely with other cities in trying to accelerate and escalate the solutions. And this is not the topic I wanted to share today, but just to let you know that we are also working very closely in this how to basically decarbonize the city, which basically is mobility, energy generation, solar panels in buildings, and housing and building refurbishment for energy efficiency. So this is something that the City Council of Barcelona is also working very hard on, together with other cities and the European Union. And then last but not least, we do a lot of efforts in adaptation. How to, by next summer, as I said, we were discussing before, for those of you who were here in Barcelona this summer, we have experienced the coolest summer that we have ever to live. So we know every summer is a record summer. We have more tropical nights, more severe high temperature, and we need to work with solutions and try to find ways to improve our habitat, our urban habitat, just by next summer, so in the short term. So I'm going to share with you some of the initiatives that the City Council of Barcelona is implementing and also sharing with other cities in all these networks and dialogues we have open in many forums. Okay, so we analyze very closely. We have different plans in which we analyze, I see better here, sorry, what's the effect of climate change in Barcelona, and 2 very clear effects, that is where we concentrate the actions, is the increase in temperature, both at night and during the day, much more days, heat waves, sooner every year, much more intense, and also drought. As I said, we are right now in a severe drought, and actually we began analyzing and gathering data by 2015. We made a projection, and we know that now in 2023 we have already reached the projections that back in 2015 and 16 we expected by 2030. So we are going indeed much faster than we thought. So this is tropical nights. I will go a little faster, but this is and all these documents are available online. This is part of the Pla Clima, the climate plan of the City of Barcelona. We analyze droughts, and we know by different neighborhoods we have different intensity in heat waves. And this is historic heat waves that we have had and how they are accelerating, and how different locations, how the heat affects different locations and neighborhoods. Also, less water resources. We know this is going to be the case. We are putting a lot of effort in, even if Barcelona is already one of the cities with less consumption per inhabitant. We did have a drought, I think it was by 2010 already. So we made a lot of efforts to reduce water consumption per inhabitant. But we know we have had an increase in tourism, which is also a pressure on water resources. And it means more citizens in the city every day in Barcelona. And so we are doing a big effort in recycling water, grey waters, working with, for example, with buildings that have a high consumption, with hotels and hospitals, for example, how to try to recycle the water. That grey waters are the waters that come out from showers and sinks, not from the toilets. There is an opportunity to work with those cycles of water to use also for watering gardens or recycling. Also, we work with phreatic water that we take and we use also for watering gardens. We have a new problem that we identified this summer. If we stopped watering gardens about a year ago because of the pre-emergency, and there was some trees fall more easily because they don't get enough water. They are more fragile in the trunk. So we are increasing the use of phreatic and recycled water to keep our vegetation and our trees, because we know it's one of our basic assets, basically to adapt the city. So it's a non-stop learning, and every summer we are taking more lessons how to better use our water resources. Green infrastructure, very relevant. We know we are used to talking about grey infrastructure, which is the roads, electricity, pipelines, cables for communications, etc. Our green infrastructure is the basis of our well-being in the city. We need to take care and grow on our green infrastructure. This is an analysis of the amount of green infrastructure by neighborhood. It's not a surprise that basically the Eixample, the enlargement of the city, is the part of the city that has less green area per inhabitant. So we need to work how to increase the green area in these neighborhoods. So we analyze also equity, proximity to gardens. Of course, we have Collserola in the north, and we have a few large parks like Montjuïc and Ciutadella, but there are many neighborhoods that don't have enough green within a walking distance for the neighborhood. So we identify which are the spaces, the areas of action. So here we drew a model on how we could work on the green infrastructure to increase the shade, because we know trees do a lot of things for the city. Not only decrease the temperature, but also they clean the air, and they are also, we have biophilia, we are biophilic animals, so we like to be closer to green. So there are many, many functions that this green infrastructure is doing to improve the quality of life. How are we doing that? So we are indeed building new parks. You may know the Canopia Urbana. We are transforming Glorias, which used to be a set of highways, into a big park. And we are increasing different types of new parks. We also work closely with rain gardens. We try to work with little gardens that take up rain whenever it rains. We take up the water also so it doesn't flood, because it may seem impossible, but we also have memory that whenever it rains a lot, and then the parallel is flooded or other parts of the city. So we work with these little gardens to do a better management of water. And we have different examples. We work with pocket gardens. Gardens are important, both big and small, so people are closer to these spaces. Also, we build stepstones of biodiversity that can make a better biodiversity context in all neighborhoods of the city. Suits, this is also the spaces to manage rainwater in a better way, so we don't overcharge the pipes whenever we have a heavy rain episode, because we know climate change is also about having long droughts, but then having strong storms episodes in shorter periods of time. So we need to deal with water. Green roofs, we also have a strategy to build green roofs. And then we have a set of other singular projects in progress in other parts of the city that are being under transformation. For example, all the Sagrera big linear park that's going to be built and will be a reality in the next decade. We're also working in parts of the front line, the coastline, the Passeig de la Marbella. There's still pieces of the shore of Barcelona that aren't finished yet, in a way, so we are working on that. The new neighborhood of La Marina, we're working also the green areas that we need to build there with all these criteria of saving water. Also working with the different species of plants. We're changing and analyzing which tree species are more adapted to droughts and to heat and the new environment. These are some sections, some views of how this is the views of the Passeig de la Marbella that I was telling, and Passeig de Llevant. We're working also with trees to protect also the neighborhoods behind from storms. We know we will have more tropical-like storms on our front line, the shoreline. Also, with energy, if we want to mitigate climate change, we need to become more electric. The mobility needs to be zero emissions, and that is a part of electricity. So we need to foster and amplify the local generation of electricity as much as we can. This means trying to put solar panels in every building, in every roof we have available in the city, because the more energy that we can produce close by, first, we don't affect other territories inland, but also we guarantee a much more resilient network to provide energy. And this is the transformation that's happening right now in the Olympic port of the city, that right now is going under construction. We're building 3 pergolas that will have solar panels on them. So the whole activity in the Olympic port will be 100% self-sufficient in energy. This is, I mentioned climate shelters, I think before. Another way to work is to develop this network of climate shelters in the whole city. So people this is to tackle also vulnerability. Many people don't have access to air conditioning in their own houses. And we have had nights, we had one night that the temperature didn't go below 30 degrees almost, especially in neighborhoods like Raval, which we have some poor housing. So we are developing climate shelters. They are parks, they can be public libraries or public buildings, and other schools, for example, that they have access to air conditioning or cooler conditions with access to water, where citizens can stop by or kind of refresh themselves on a heat wave, on the scene of a heat wave. And this we are working also, this is with Barcelona Regional, we're working that not only at the Barcelona scale, but also at the metropolitan scale. So we work in the solutions that work in Barcelona, of course they work in the other municipalities. And yeah, right now we are really increasing, working to increase this network of shelters. And there has also one initiative that we are working on, and this is a line of direction. We have learned a lot from tourism. Barcelona is a city that almost died of success with tourism because in only 20 years we had an exponential growth of visitors in the city. Before COVID, we were beginning to have some tourists go home effect. Then COVID came and the city was shut down, and then we missed some of the tourists or some of the economic sector of the city. We understood that we need some visitors to come. So now we're trying to work with a more sustainable way to work with tourism, and one of the ways we're working is to increase the tax on tourism, on visitors, especially, for example, cruises that come only for less than 12 hours in the city. We double the tourism tax for those visitors that only stay a few hours and then go. And we use this tax in order to work with local problems. For example, we have launched a climate control plan for schools, because the schools didn't have refrigeration, didn't have air conditioning or ventilators because during the summer months they were closed. But now we know that September is very warm, October is very warm, so we need to work with climate conditions in schools. How? With the tourist tax, we're helping local schools, public schools, to improve the climate conditions. So that's one of the ways we're working with that. And this was all I wanted to share with you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Barbara. I think it's been a very, very interesting presentation because in a nutshell, people have been able to see some of the many actions that the municipality has undertaken, and also many of the instruments that the municipality has to tackle this challenge. You mentioned the climate plan, also the nature plan. Those are documents that I really recommend to you because they are pioneers not only here in our country but also internationally. 2 weeks ago we had a mission from different cities of the southern Mediterranean that came to Barcelona during 3 days and had the chance to meet also with municipal staff because Barcelona holds an important capital of knowledge inside the institution, right? And they could know firsthand some of the solutions that were presented today, the importance of nature-based solutions, green infrastructure, the SUDS, the urban drainage systems that people maybe don't know, but you can start seeing in the city how some small gardens are now at a level below the ground, so the rainwater falls inside, and it's an accumulative way for water not to go into the pipes. You can see those in Calalier, in El Poblenou, or in La Marina del Prat Vermell. But so there is a lot of transformations in the city going on that sometimes as citizens we do not realize that this transformation is undergoing. So I think it is very interesting for citizens having presentations like yours today because they see that there are many things taking into consideration that are ongoing. Something that we share, Barbara mentioned the question of the 100 carbon neutral cities, this flagship initiative of the European Union, which actually are not 100 because 100 are the ones inside the EU, but they are 107, if I'm not, 11, and 12, 112. Those 12 are cities from neighboring countries of the European Union that have been included in the initiative so they can peer with the European cities and they can take part of the same initiative. One of those 12 cities that are joining the other EU 100 cities is precisely Izmir, and this shows us how the European Union has identified Izmir as one of the only 12 cities of the European neighborhood that will participate in this process. This tells us a lot already on how important Izmir is in the eastern part of the Mediterranean in implementing those policies. So to learn a little bit more about what the city of Izmir is going, we have today with us Mert Türkben from the Foreign Relations Department of the city of Izmir. Mert works extensively on international relations and has been involved in a wide range of initiatives of the city, which contributed connecting Izmir to the global value chain through more engagement with international organizations. I think that this is something that defines Izmir very well, not only the actions they make, but also the capacity to partner with institutions, companies, organizations all over the world to be part of this value change. So we would be very interested, Mert, in knowing a little bit more about Izmir and about the policies you are undertaking, and then we can maybe move to the discussion panel. Thank you very much and welcome to Barcelona.
Thank you very much, Oriol. It's a great pleasure being here, and thank you for IEMed for organizing, and thank you for you being here. Izmir, I want to start by briefly giving some information about Izmir, its history and the vision of Mayor Soyer. Located on the west coast of Turkey by the agency, Izmir belongs to the broader Southeast Europe region. It is one of the major Mediterranean port cities. It has a population of 4.5 million inhabitants, and it stretches over 12,000 square kilometers. Under the Izmir Metropolitan Municipality, there are 30 districts, and each of them are the borders of these districts. And these 30 districts have each one its own district municipality. These places include both urbanized and rural areas. 11 of them in the inner bay, 11 of them are more densely populated central districts of Izmir. You can see it here, these more densely populated ones. Izmir has a history of 8,500 years. Trade and interactions with the Mediterranean have always been at the center of our history, and the city's identity is like equal to the port's identity. The city has been hub of dense maritime networks, and the goods traded from the Silk Road, ancient Silk Road, have been sent to European and Mediterranean countries from the port of Izmir. This identity of being a port city also affected accumulation of different cultures, lots of diversity, and it's a point where Eastern and Western cultures mingle and live together in harmony. Today we get inspiration from Izmir's history, and we see that multi-ethnic, religiously diverse and multilingual period of the city has offered more opportunities and more prosperity to its people. Therefore, Mayor Soyer focuses on increasing the connectivity and interactions of Izmir with cities and international organizations from Mediterranean and all around the world. After his election in 2019, in the very first week, Mayor Soyer sent letters to the Mediterranean mayors from Barcelona, Alexandria, Venice, Thessaloniki, and just to revitalize dialogue. Izmir as a city, very active in lots of umbrella city networks like MedCities, Arlem, UCLG, C40, ICLEI, and also these institutions are crucial for the city diplomacy because cities are very vulnerable against climate crisis, and they need to be recognized in the international framework and international global organizations in the UN system. Cities must be recognized, and this city diplomacy through the city umbrella organizations is crucial. All these international cooperation efforts are also helping us attracting lots of knowledge, expertise, and best practices from cities all around the Mediterranean, like Barcelona. Izmir is the first city in Turkey to prepare a green city action plan. We prepared this action plan with the help of with the support of the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, EBRD. We have also prepared our sustainable energy and climate action plan and committed to reduce 40% our carbon emissions by 2030. We are part of the EU Cities mission, and also we are now currently preparing our sustainable mobility plan with an European Union grant of 3 million euros. And recently, Izmir hosting lots of international events like the UCIG Culture Summit. The Culture Summit was crucial because we launched an umbrella concept, circular culture, during the UCIG Culture Summit. This umbrella concept offers us a very valuable framework and helps us communicate our priorities better. Circular culture focuses on 4 pillars: harmony with nature, harmony with each other, harmony with the past, and harmony with change. Just to explain these concepts very briefly, harmony with nature offers new perspectives on human nature and city-nature relations. Harmony with each other focuses on reducing societal inequalities. Harmony with our past highlights the importance of traditional knowledge and also multiple cultures in the past. And harmony with change is about being open to change in collaboration with other cities of the world. Circular culture concept and also these key documents like the Green City Action Plan, Sustainable Energy and Climate Action Plan are extremely valuable, especially today, because in last 2 years we are seeing lots of natural disasters caused by the climate crisis. In just 2 years, we saw one of the biggest forest fires in city's history, a drought, a tsunami, and a flood. Drought and a flood simultaneously, consequently. So this is clearly showing the signals urgent need for climate adaptation. I want to give an example of an initiative to illustrate more our approach. To make the city more resilient against droughts and floods, Izmir Metropolitan Municipality established the Water Resources Research and Application Center in 2021. In this center, engineers, landscape architects, and urban planners designed and launched Izmir Sponge City program. It is launched just last year, and 2 main components of this program is the rainwater harvesting and rain gardens. The first component, rainwater harvesting, is aiming to harvest the rainwater falling on the building roofs. By this way, we will try to accumulate this important water resource and using it more efficiently. And to ensure that this will also prevent floods from happening, and also it will protect the bay from polluted rainwater. Each year, 75 million tons of rainwater falls to building roofs. And in the 11 central districts of Izmir, 47% of rainwater falls to the building roofs. So there is a high potential for rainwater harvesting. To create an incentive and to launch this program, municipality gives 5,000 rainwater tanks to the buildings of citizens who apply to this program for free. So these are tanks like looking this one. The building, from the building roofs, the tanks will accumulate the rainwater, and then this gray water is being used for the requirements of the building. And it has a simple filtering system as well, this tank. And the second main component of the Sponge City program is the rain gardens. Again, when citizens apply, municipality provide them the necessary plants and the materials to establish their own rain gardens close to their buildings. And the aim is to create 10,000 rain gardens. These also will reduce the rainwater going into the sewage system, and it will also protect our bay and also from streets to get flood. In addition, the program includes reconstructing some parts of the city with more permeable concrete, so that the rain can flow easily. And another initiative under this program is the restoration of the Halkapınar Lake. So this is the motor. This Halkapınar Lake was at this, close to the city center, and it was now dried up. But until 1980, the lake was the main water resource of the city. But with the increasing population, the resources of the lake were dried up. To revitalize this lake, we want to build an ecological corridor until the Nif Mountain, which is the main source of this Halkapınar Lake. So we want to create an ecological corridor starting from the bay and going until the Nif Mountain, so that as citizens starting their journey from the bay can either walk or bike until the Halkapınar Lake and then go climb towards the Nif Mountain as well. So we will revitalize this ecological corridor and protect the collective memory of the city as well. Launched in December 2022, Izmir Sponge City program has been successfully ongoing for almost a year now. And the long-term 5-year target of this program is to reduce the free flow of the rainwater up to 70%. And the program is aiming to make our urban environments part of the natural water cycles. Maybe I should conclude here.
Okay, we keep the rest for the questions?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much, Mert, for this presentation. I think that you raised very interesting points. On the one hand, something that it is shared by many Mediterranean cities is the fact that Mediterranean cities are by definition old in history. So they were created 2, 3, 4, 5,000 years ago. 8,000 in the case of Izmir. In the case of cities like Tripoli in Lebanon or Aleppo in Syria is also around 6,000 years. So those are cities that have grown as an oil spot, right? We did not have the chance to plan them from scratch, as you can maybe have done in many American cities that you can. They started planning early 20th century in some cases, no? Here is very different. You had the historical background, and then you need to adapt the city to the reality on the one hand. And the second thing that you mentioned that I think it is also shared by many Mediterranean cities is the question of natural disasters, no? I remember that 3 or 4 years ago, the deputy mayor of Tirana in Albania, he told me that during his period in office, 3 years, he had lived the worst drought, the worst fires, and the worst flooding in 60 years in Tirana in 3 years. So, and this is something that is becoming more and more common. You remember this year we have had the terrible earthquakes in Turkey in February, that now maybe we have forgotten them, but terrible earthquakes in Turkey, terrible earthquakes in Morocco, but then also flooding very recently in Libya. So the question of climate crisis is something that in the Mediterranean is already present. It's not something that we will tackle in the future. going on now, and we need to take urgent action in that sense. And also, this is a challenge that is added to the traditional challenges that we have in the Mediterranean and that we unfortunately are seeing these days, for example, in Israel and Palestine. So the climate question is something that is added on top of the traditional conflicts and challenges that the Mediterranean has lived. I would like to ask you, it's almost 7 o'clock, so I will ask you maybe one question each, and then we can open the floor, and if the discussion is living, we can continue with the audience. If not, I can retake some questions. You, Barbara, you are also an urban planner. So I would like to, maybe you can explain us a little bit more this question, how you find the balance in the city, no? You are explaining the question of tourism, how to balance tourism with using the money from the tax to implement actions. You have different interests in the city. How cities can innovate in order to introduce these measures to adapt to the climate change, and at the same time be respectful and taking into consideration the different interests and the different reality of the city in terms of inequalities, in terms of many diversity that exists in the city. How to find this balance, and how are you approaching this from the municipality of Barcelona?
Yeah, very interesting question, Oriol, and I think there is no one way to deal with that. It is definitely one of the main challenges we can have. We can find other details, but I think, and this is a common topic that we discuss, the main challenges of many cities, probably also Izmir, today are climate change, but also inequalities. And by the way, climate change also increased some inequalities. Some would say maybe also technological disruption, no? Artificial intelligence, maybe another actor that also increases inequalities. But in the end, in the cities is where we experience also more the inequalities. And I think Barcelona is is a city that has always been very concerned about that. We don't like to find solutions, and this is something that has a real effect into the city planning also. I don't know if many of you know that the Olympic transformation was also very well known in the world of architects and urban planners, because the mayor at the time, Pascual Maragall, and Oriol Bohigas, the architect chief that was leading these projects, they decided it was the beginning of the democratic city councils in Spain, so they had a very progressive attitude towards design, and they thought that the solutions that we're going to implement for example, making accessible the sidewalks. Sidewalks didn't have, for handicap to go with the wheelchairs or now bikes to have so the solution of the sidewalk, the stone, the trash bin, and it's called the Barcelona solution, and they use the same high-end granite for the solution in Passeig de Gràcia to Nou Barris in Barcelona. So the aim of the mayor at the time, Pascual Maragall, was that he could walk from Passeig de Gràcia to Ciutat Meridiana and find the same urban solutions in all the public space along the city. That is, of course, a very ambitious aim, but that was the focus. So this is the Barcelona way, and I think all the mayors behind and after him have tried to keep this really believe that we need to tackle solutions taking into account how we make the city not to have inequalities. Even the current mayor, in one of his first speeches, was saying that we should really take care, and the mayor and the city council should protect the public space, because the public space belongs to everyone, to all Barcelonians. Those who have nothing, even the homeless, they have the public space. So we should really take care of that, and we invest a lot of effort in keeping it clean, keeping it well, and it's something we need to build on civic behavior, so we take care of our public spaces because it's part of our heritage. So working with the public space and making it a real priority is one of the ways as city planners and also the political decision makers take very seriously in Barcelona. Barcelona public space is studied all over the world. For my professional career, I have been quite nomadic, living in other cities, and really Barcelona is a reference for public space design, at least I say since Cerdà, because Cerdà was the one who conceived this city with wide streets and public spaces and interesting crossings for accommodating speed and public parks, etc. But then every transformation that the city has experienced has taken care about public space design. The Olympic transformation, the hard plazas of the 90s, they have been studied all over the place in architectural and urban planning reviews. And we make a big effort at the City Council to have our webpage. If you visit the webpage, any plan we do, any action, it's in 3 languages, in Catalan, Spanish, and English, because we know for the visitors of our website, many city councils around the world and experts and universities study what we do in our public spaces. So really making public space the priority of city planning is one of the assets. Tourism arrived to Barcelona as a boom, because if you see the projection of hotel nights in the city, I don't know, some of you know that in 1989, in 1986 is when the Olympic Games were appointed in Barcelona, and by 1989 there was a plan called the Hotel Plan in Barcelona, launched by the mayor at the time, Pasqual Maragall, because the city didn't have enough hotels to host the visitors of the Olympic Games. So there was a plan, so the city council built the hotels, created the land possible to build hotels. Today, we have we had to limit the hotel creation in the city in only 20-something years. So this exponential exposure to tourism has created good and positive and negative effects. So we are learning from success also how to deal and how to tackle tourism to make it more sustainable. We are still working on it. This idea about using tourist tax for people who just visit, but those visitors or Barcelonians for us a few hours or a few days, also they are using our public space, but they don't pay taxes in Barcelona. So the way we do that is they pay a tax, a tourist tax. If they want to visit our fantastic public spaces and streets, they pay. And with that money, we do tangible things for the locals also to balance inequalities. So it's just one strategy where we are still learning.
Very interesting, Barbara. I think that the question of sidewalks might seem evident because we have we feel it as so natural that we don't perceive it, but the fact that when you're walking and looking at your feet, you cannot tell in what neighborhood you are, this is very important, because in other cities, just watching where are your feet walking, you know exactly if you are in a wealthy or non-wealthy neighborhood, and this is very interesting. And also the question of the hotels and tourism, it also relates to the size of the city, right? Because it's not a matter of many tourists or less tourists, just that the city is very small. This week we are having 2 different groups from outside in the city, and since the Smart City Congress, one group is staying in El Prat and the other group is staying in Castelldefels. So the tourist question and the visitors is no longer a city issue, it's a metropolitan issue. And here I think that we can learn a lot from cities like Izmir, that they are, in Turkey we have the metropolitan municipalities, which are, maybe we need to compare those to what here is the area metropolitana or even the Diputación, in the sense that they are managing a very wide range of territory. You were talking about 10,000 or 12,000 square kilometers. Can you tell us a little bit, how are you managing this in terms of 2 things? Rural or urban to less urban dimension, and also in terms of transport. How do you structure all these, and what can we learn from Izmir in that perspective?
We are, in our vision, we are focusing on bringing nature to our city, because Izmir is both urban and rural areas. We want to make this connection of the nature and the city. So in the very center, we want to bring the nature to the center with our parks, with our gardens, with our ecological corridors. And our priority is to use in our parks and gardens natural flora specific to Izmir. So that this is crucial, because by using local plants in our parks and gardens, we are also again reducing the water consumption, because all the parks and gardens, the irrigation of the other unsustainable plants have a very negative effect for us. That's why we are, in our parks and gardens, we are focusing on using local plant species specific to Izmir, specific to the Mediterranean climate. And also we have a project called Living Parks, which are located in the urban periphery. These living parks are places where people can interact with the wildlife, biodiversity, and experience agriculture. They protect the ecosystem and re-establish urban-rural connection. For example, the living park in Gediz Delta, where the 10% of world's flamingo population lives, offers bird watching opportunities for citizens and also create awareness of the Izmir's rich biodiversity. We are trying to connect these living parks across the city with the 7 ecological corridors so that this nature and the urban can be a whole inside within itself. And this similar approaches we are applying when we face a disaster like a forest fire. When we face the forest fire, to recover that area, we are again using specific trees to the Mediterranean climate so that these trees will require no irrigation, and since it's compatible with this geography, if we face again a forest fire, these kind of species can grow by themselves. So it provides us a resilience also. And also in terms of the transportation, a quarter of the carbon dioxide emissions in our city comes from the transportation. And we are, as I mentioned, we are preparing our sustainable urban mobility plan with an EU grant. And we aim to reduce the private car ownership, increase cycling, increase walkability, electric mobility. And we have our public transportation in Turkey have an electric bus fleet. It's only electric bus fleet in Turkey. We are also generating the electricity of this bus fleet from the solar panels that we established in our municipal buildings. Now there is another EU project that we are applying, European EU project titled Sustainable Mobility and Reliable Transportation. With this project, we are aiming to finance the purchase of 100 more electric buses, and we will also produce their electricity with solar panels. Of course, this is a 4.5 million inhabitant city, and the infrastructure requirements are increasing, and we are building large-scale infrastructure like new metro lines, but it's also requires lots of financing and lots of involvement of international financial organizations. For example, with the EBRD, we are now building 2 metro lines, and when finished, it will carry 500,000 citizens per day. These are important projects for us, and also we are trying to promote the culture of using bicycles. Now we have 111 kilometers long bike path, which also we have also another bike path with uninterrupted and a connection with it going through the entire bay of Izmir. We are focusing on integrating bike with the public transportation. For example, if a passenger get on the ferry with its bike, it's almost for free. Get on the ferry with a bike. And also we have a bicycle rental system, and 1,000 bicycles we are making it available to the usage of citizens. And we have Izmir is the first city in Turkey to be included in the Eurovelo, which is a network of long-distance cycle routes. For example, Eurovelo Mediterranean route, which also passes through Barcelona and comes until Izmir. It's also physically connects our cities in the Mediterranean. And this year in October, we hosted a Eurovelo conference in Izmir, and these events are also important to increase the visibility of bicycle as a sustainable way of transportation.
Thank you. I think that the connectivity at metropolitan level of the bicycle is something that it's a challenge here in Barcelona metropolitan area. I think and the Weissing, no? The next Weissing in 2027 or 2028 will allow to connect the different municipalities. And very interesting also the question of parks, no? Because when we are talking about a metropolitan level of parks, parks are no longer a place where a gardener mows the lawn and it has banks, no? And here this debate of how metropolitan parks need to be considered. When we go here to the Llobregat Park, which is the river that connects several metropolitan municipalities, you will not find banks to sit, you will not find even places to throw your garbage, because the mixture between what is an urban park, what is a natural space, and this transition to natural corridors is something that when you're talking about a small city, it's very clear that a park is artificial. But when you're discussing at metropolitan level, where is the line between where nature starts and where the city finishes? This is a very, very interesting debate. So I would suggest now to open the floor to the audience. We have a little less than 20 minutes, and maybe we can take 2 rounds of questions. I suggest you to take 3-4 questions at one time, then the panelists can answer, and then we take 3 or 4 more. And I would kindly ask you, when you take the floor, to introduce yourself and to put your question as briefly as possible so we can take as many questions as possible. Thank you very much. And I will switch, Mert, if you don't mind, into Catalan for this part. Endavant, qui s'anima a trencar el gel? Aquí, primera pregunta, allà darrere.
Perdó, com està el tema de l'oposició places dures, places verdes, número 1, avantatges i inconvenients? I l'altre... Bueno, ja te l'he dit després.
Perfecte, gràcies. Allá darrere, sí.
Hola, yo soy Juanita Remolina, estudiante de maestría en diseño estratégico y complejidad, y quisiera conocer un poco más sobre cómo están involucrando a los ciudadanos en la construcción y diseño de estas estrategias, y en cuanto a la conciencia de esta colaboración y esta co-creación de esta transición hacia la que ustedes han hablado que están haciendo con sus diferentes referentes en torno a la ciudad, pero más hacia la participación ciudadana. Gracias.
Hola, buena tarde. Muy interesante las presentaciones. Soy Carlos Castilla, hago varias cosas del Instituto de Derechos Humanos de Cataluña. Me interesa de manera específica, hablando de adaptación, los temas de migración, relocación o reubicación planificada y desplazamiento. Porque ahora se habla, ¿no?, de los refugios climáticos, que puede ser muy controversial ese mismo término, pero al final y al cabo estos refugios climáticos son temporales, incluso por horas, y son muy enfocados en altas temperaturas. Pero se está pensando en la necesidad de movilizar personas, puede ser la última opción de la adaptación, pero no sé si se están dando ya ideas, pensamientos o reflexiones en relación a esto. Gracias.
Una última... Sí, acabi.
La segona que m'havia oblidat. Mesures de promoció de l'arquitectura en fusta.
Potser podem agafar una més en aquesta ronda. Si no surten mentre ens ho pensem, podem començar amb aquestes. Moltes gràcies perquè són preguntes que són molt concretes i molt rellevants. Mert, are they clear? The translation is fine. Do you want me to repeat a little bit more?
Yes.
The first one was the difference between when building urban squares on tough materials or permeable materials, how do you deal with this question? And also the use of sustainable materials such as wood in construction. That's one part of the question. The second one relates to the citizenship participation in the design and implementation of policies, which is something that it is true that we didn't tackle in the discussion, and it is also very relevant. And the third question is the question of migration and climate shelters at the same time. That normally climate shelters are thought as temporary and very linked to high temperatures, but also it can reach a moment in which the effects of climate change, if I understood well the question, may have an effect on permanent settlers of specific areas of one city or one metropolis, if this is something that is starting to be discussed or thought, and now we have forecasting models that help us to better understand those phenomena in the long run, so maybe we have the tools to start planning eventual harder decisions in terms of where people can and cannot live, which, by the way, 60 years ago we started doing this with the flooding and the old rivers. This is something that we already did, that okay, here we cannot park, here we cannot live. So it's not something that is necessarily a new phenomenon, but it is true that now we know many more things of how this affects. Who wants to start? Barbara, maybe?
Yeah, I can jump into the hard squares, soft squares. I will shift to Catalan to answer. Les places dures van ser molt populars als anys 80 i 90 i eren una complementària a la transformació olímpica. Es van fer aquestes actuacions d'acupuntura urbana com a projectes urbans en molts barris de la ciutat. Avui en dia l'aproximació és ben diferent. Sabem també que aquesta impermeabilització extrema de la superfície provoca al final que el dia que plou, i que aquí quan plou no plou com a Londres, a poc a poc, sinó que plou molt i genera més inundacions. Es treballa molt en que l'objectiu és que el 60% de la superfície de l'espai públic sigui permeable. Això és una cosa que s'està aplicant. S'ha aplicat, per exemple, el concepte superilles i a Consell de Cent. La idea era reduir la impermeabilitat dels paviments, entre altres objectius que hi havia. Ara es treballa les places amb aquest concepte. I l'altre que se sobreposa és el tema de l'ombra. El tema d'ombres també és una cosa que és molt recent. Ara el pla d'ombres l'estem treballant encara. Hem identificat algunes àrees que ho necessiten més urgentment i es van identificar això que he comentat del litoral, preparant-nos per la Copa Amèrica, és un exemple molt clar, però hi ha alguns espais de la ciutat que no hi ha ombres, la plaça Espanya, tenim altres espais on no hi ha per diferents motius, i aquí sí que s'està treballant un pla més sistemàtic de com incrementar les ombres en aquests grans espais on a l'estiu fa por creuar una distància de més de X metres que no hi ha ombra. El concepte ha canviat molt. Realment aquí l'evolució de l'espai públic i també la temperatura mitja de Barcelona està evolucionant molt ràpid als estius. Tenim cada vegada més dies on és difícil viure amb aquestes temperatures, per tant, el tema de les places dures és bastant una qüestió de, amb el percentatge que hi havia abans, és una cosa que ha evolucionat molt. I continuo amb l'arquitectura en fusta. L'arquitectura en fusta és un vector de transformació molt potent. Vol dir que podem transformar els edificis de ser emissors de CO2 nets, és a dir, que la producció de formigó, de vidre i d'acer en el seu procés de vida útil emet moltíssim CO2. Podem transformar els edificis en sumiders de CO2, és a dir, si els fem en fusta, en mass timber, que pot ser estructural i pot ser... Realment podríem transformar que les ciutats fossin realment espais on fixem el CO2. Conceptualment és una cosa molt potent en el mig i llarg termini i Barcelona està experimentant i l'àrea metropolitana ha fet uns quants concursos d'habitatge social que s'està construint ja. Tenim un exemple a la plaça Glòries que s'està construint, hi ha un altre a la Verneda que s'estan construint ja amb panells d'estructura de fusta. És una tècnica que ha vingut per quedar-se, però quan parles amb la gent que fa aquesta planificació hi ha un problema. Quan penses en el cicle de vida, avui en dia, per exemple, a Catalunya té que veure amb la indústria, que no produïm mass timber, no hi ha fàbriques, sí que tenim boscos que estan gestionats, però no tenim fàbriques on es fa el mass timber. És una tècnica que tu vas encolant capes de fusta perquè sigui molt resistent. Això ho fan o crec que a Galícia hi ha alguna, o a Àustria o a Finlàndia. Si tu has de portar els panells des d'Àustria o Finlàndia ja comença a no ser tan eficient. Hauríem de realment generar la demanda perquè algú del sector privat, si hi ha perquè algú amb iniciativa, algun entrepreneur, que faci una fàbrica de mass timber en l'entorn metropolità de Barcelona. Evidentment, aquí hi ha un tema de senyal. Aquí parlava de l'important de les escales. Si la Unió Europea fes una directiva, o l'Estat, diguem, anem a calcular tot el CO2 del cicle vital dels edificis, potser aleshores el mercat i les administracions començaríem a preocupar-nos de no només pensar quin és el pressupost per fer l'edifici i també com l'energia que consumeix l'edifici, passar de les calderes de gas a les elèctriques, no el funcionament, sinó també com s'ha construït aquest edifici. Si aquesta variable la comencem a introduir, ja probablement transformem. Aquest període que estem vivint de transicions va d'això, que hem de transformar sectors complets de l'economia. I això és en la mobilitat, ha parlat de la mobilitat, també. El tema de transformar el 100% dels autobusos i dels taxis i dels busos turístics que siguin tots elèctrics, això genera tota una indústria de vehicles elèctrics que al voltant de l'àrea metropolitana de Barcelona tenim unes quantes fàbriques de cotxes i ja tenim alguna de motos que s'està posant al dia amb les silence, etc. Però és tota una transformació que arrossega una transformació també de l'economia que hauríem de veure com una oportunitat. No sé si per passar a una altra...
But maybe you want to take on the other two, the question of participation maybe, or
of course.
Climate shelters?
In terms of citizens' participation, we have many different tools in hand. For example, we have an urgent solutions team, which we call urgent solutions teams. This is like a 20-30 people team, and actually when we are tackling an issue, especially in an underprivileged neighborhood of Izmir, we go with this team, go door by door, taking the decisions and preferences of the citizens, listening them, doing some questionnaires, taking their advice. This is a more physical, face-to-face citizen participation method that we are using. So far, in last 2 years, this team has talked face-to-face and received the feedback of approximately 60,000 citizens. It's like a more slow but more face-to-face dialogue that we are conducting, and we are gathering the needs of the citizens of this neighborhood. For example, they want either to have a park, to have a bicycle road, or what is their urgent need in that specific neighborhood. But we have also large workshops where we gather in a large meeting areas, we gather lots of stakeholders, and we inform them of our specific projects, and also they give their feedback to us, they send their requests to us, and we have also online platforms where we also collect some data from digital tools, digital platforms, which we call VD Izmir. This is like a digital platform designed to as a digital city square of Izmir. So we have different methods, and also in the presidency, like the mayor himself, especially during times of crisis like the pandemic, met regularly with the civil society organizations. Like once in a week, there is like a coordination meeting, and this coordination meeting, there are the representatives, the presidents of important NGOs, civil society organizations, professional unions represented, and they directly give their feedback to the mayor himself. So there are many different types of citizen participation methods we have. And for the migration issue, currently we are not facing with a climate-related displacement problem right now, but we are facing actually a problem of need for urban regeneration. Because Izmir is an earthquake zone, we need to regenerate lots of neighborhoods where people actually live right now. In that sense, our approach is again more face-to-face. Our teams go door to door again, collect the consensus and collect the deeds of that specific person, and clear the entire area with full consensus, then facilitate the tendering process for the urban regeneration of that area, and the person who is living in this place, in this underprivileged neighborhood, receive a new house without paying any fee. That's a unique model to Izmir, and it's not implemented in other places in Turkey. It's a long process, but it's very inclusive and protecting the citizens rather than the private sector.
Interessant aquesta idea de combinar instruments de participació, no? Si tinguéssim segurament de la Direcció de Participació de Barcelona o l'Oficina de Participació de l'àrea d'urbanisme, veuríem també com hi ha aquesta combinació en funció de la problemàtica de mètodes més directes, mètodes més indirectes, mètodes més presencials en línia. Podríem agafar una o dues preguntes molt ràpides, si hi són, aquí davant.
Sí, hola. Sí, hola, Baltasar Pozuelo. ¿Se oye?
Sí, sí.
Baltasar Pozuelo de Área 8. En primer lugar, felicidades, Bárbara, no sabía. El último encuentro que tuve yo creo que no eras, ¿no? Ya estaba ahí madurando. Haré una pregunta, yo creo que un poquito triple, ¿no? Para los tres, ¿no? La realidad de Esmirna es a pesar de las similitudes que tiene, es muy diferente por la densidad de población. Es decir, Izmir es una población que tiene una densidad de unos 400 habitantes por kilómetro cuadrado. Barcelona se va a los 16.000 o vete a saber, ¿no? Por tanto, Izmir, ¿cómo afrontará la transición energética? Porque es bien evidente que... Y tengo mucha curiosidad porque Izmir es una ciudad, una metrópolis, con muchos kilómetros de costa. Eso implica una complejidad todavía mucho mayor y cómo afrontan esa transición ecológica también desde el Mediterráneo. Bárbara, en tus competencias como directora de Barcelona Regional, quizás es el momento de un nuevo plan CERDA, ya no enfocado a las enfermedades que acuciaron a Barcelona en los siglos en los que se definió esa manera de que el sol entrase en las casas y tal, sino en cuanto al cambio climático. Y por otro lado, bueno, decirte que se instala en Cataluña, en el Baix Ebre, Cronospan, que creo que se dedica a exactamente esa misma tarea y con una megaplanta impresionante, ¿no? Por otro lado, a los dos, el tema de aguas freáticas, yo supongo en Barcelona hay gran cantidad de aguas freáticas, el aprovechamiento de ese recurso. En Esmirna no lo sé, lo pregunto, más creo que debe estar de una forma parecida. Y con respecto a MedCities, ¿no? Desde el Mediterráneo, la capacidad de impacto con respecto al cambio climático se percibe insuficiente. Es decir, las medidas que podemos adoptar son más locales que globales. Sin embargo, desde el punto de vista de la ciudadanía, que antes se estaba apuntando, desde el punto de vista de los consumos, de la ciudadanía, de la conciencia ciudadana, sí que tenemos una gran capacidad de impacto sobre el cambio climático. ¿Qué podemos hacer ahí desde las ciudades del Mediterráneo con respecto a estos temas? Y finalmente, en Barcelona puso en marcha un district heating con el desarrollo del 22 arroba, tiene otro district heating en la Marina del Prat Vermell. Generar microdistrict heating no tendría sentido en la ciudad, teniendo en cuenta que hay grandes fuentes de calor. Gracias.
Si hi ha alguna pregunta molt ràpida i si no passarem a les respostes perquè estem gairebé fora de temps. Moltes gràcies per les preguntes, totes pertinents i interessants. Tindríem 1 o 2 minuts cadascú per intentar sintetitzar les respostes, si no suposo que quan s'acabi podem parlar-ho en bilateral, però sí us demanaria d'afrontar aquestes preguntes, sobretot en el cas d'Izmir, in the case of Izmir, the question of the different density, no? I guess that it's not that all of the areas have the same density, but how you manage those and the use of water, i en el cas de Barcelona el tema del possible repensament climàtic cerdà, un concepte interessant, i després tancaré jo al final i intentaré fer referència al que comentaven. Thank you, Umar.
Thank you very much. For the case of Izmir, we are aiming to increase the renewables, but of course, for the transition to the renewables in a city of 4.5 million inhabitants, it will require stakeholder involvement and a more bottom-up process as well, because the citizens, individual buildings will need to make some investments as well, and these are like there are some an incentive framework should be prepared, and for that reason EU mission is an important step for us, EU climate neutral cities mission. In that mission we built a platform with multiple stakeholders. We launched it. It is aiming for creating this energy transition of the city, but of course it's requiring lots of progress and lots of stakeholder engagement and private sector investment as well, and also the involvement of the national governments, because like only a city government cannot completely do this transition on its own. But the direction is to the renewables. We are using renewables in the municipal buildings, in our public transportation system, and also we are providing some incentives for the renewable usage in the agriculture sector, but it should also, it will take lots of time and effort.
Bárbara.
Sí, district heating, sí, de hecho se está trabajando, tenemos el del 22 arroba, que ha crecido o está creciendo, el de la Marina, que tiene que crecer para conectarse con la planta de regasificación de Nagas, y hay otro que está en vías de planificación en Sagrera. Sagrera es la gran transformación que tiene que llegar en los próximos 4 a 8 años, donde se desarrollará una nueva zona de la ciudad de Barcelona, y hay un district heating que está planificado para que se pueda desarrollar en esa zona. Y nos estamos planteando si quizá en la otra parte de Barcelona, por lo que es Porta Diagonal, o el principio de la entrada de Barcelona por la Diagonal, donde tendremos el Nou Clinic, está el BCC, el Supercomputing Center, que va a crecer, las universidades como grandes consumidores de energía, sería la ocasión, el momento de pensar en otro cuarto district heating, pero sí, realmente podemos empezar a pensar ya cuál es la foto finish de lo que necesitamos de energía en Barcelona y planificarlo de forma que sea lo más eficiente posible. Y el tema del Plan Cerdà metropolitano es una idea fantástica que, bueno, que podría ser. Lo que sí que está en marcha, y es una cosa que pasa cada 50 años, se está repensando el Plan Director Metropolitano ahora mismo, ha tenido una aprobación inicial. Para los que no sepan de planificación, el primer plan metropolitano que se aprobó en Barcelona es del año 76, se aprobó el Pla Urbanístic Metropolità, que lo que llevamos más de 2.000 modificaciones puntuales de este plan durante estos casi 50 años de despliegue de este plan. Ahora mismo, bueno, desde el año 2012 se empezó a revisar este plan, se ha conseguido aprobar inicialmente, pero es un plan de 35 municipios. Ahora mismo es el plan director, un plan director que tiene que hacer las líneas maestras del desarrollo de los Horizonte 2050, de los próximos 25 años, y está previsto que en estos 4 años se apruebe definitivamente y podamos empezar a redactar el POUMED, que es el plan realmente urbanístico que define, uno es el plan director y el otro es el plan urbanístico que definirá las líneas maestras de la Barcelona del 2050 neutra en carbono. Y aquí sí que esto es un momentum que estamos viviendo ahora muy interesante, donde se implicará la ciudadanía y, por supuesto, es en el entorno del área metropolitana. Es muy interesante que así sea, para coordinar la planificación urbanística de estos 36 municipios del área. Pero sí, es un trabajo muy, muy interessant que està succeint.
Moltes gràcies. Abans de tancar, una breu referència. És cert que a la Mediterrània segurament no estem fent prou. És cert també que hi ha una consciència ciutadana en el que és el dia a dia i com intentar adoptar pràctiques sostenibles. Jo crec que el proper repte immediat que no acabem d'arribar és acabar d'entendre que la mar Mediterrània és una mar que és compartida i que el que passa a la xarxa de clavegueram d'Alger ens afecta de manera directa. Alger és la capital d'estat més propera de Barcelona, més que Madrid. I pot semblar frívol parlar d'aquests temes avui en dia, però que una ciutat com sigui Gaza, d'1 milió i escaig d'habitants, porti un mes sense pràcticament que el seu clavegueram funcioni. Aquí hi ha el Jordi Cortés, tècnic de l'Ajuntament de Barcelona, amb contacte directe amb l'Ajuntament de Gaza, sempre i també darrerament, això té un impacte directe climàtic i ambiental brutal per Líban, per mateix Israel, pels xipriotes i per tot. Llavors, ens falta per mi encara entendre una mica més que el mar Mediterrani és un mar petit, que és compartit, i que hem de fer una acció coordinada molt més gran. Potser l'any que ve tenim una oportunitat aquí a Barcelona en el marc dels esdeveniments paral·lels a la Copa Amèrica per tractar aquest tema amb les ciutats mediterrànies, perquè realment això és un tema que només podem tractar de manera coordinada i que té uns efectes que a vegades aquí netegem una mica les platges i sembla que no tingui un efecte, però que té un efecte brutal que o ens hi posem ja o no ens en sortirem amb el tema de la contaminació marina d'origen terrestre. Sí, evidentment.
L'aigua és un vector, és el que ens ha donat vida, totes les ciutats tenen alguna font d'aigua a prop, a sota o al costat, i no només per als temes ambientals, també sabem que la Mediterrània també és un gran cementiri, i connectant amb les migracions no planificades que venen, tota la ribera africana, hi ha uns vectors de migracions no controlades que no pararan, també perquè hi ha molts refugiats climàtics i de tot tipus, que busquen noves oportunitats al nord d'Europa. Això també ens concern com a ciutat mediterrània i crec que és fonamental que les ciutats de la Mediterrània treballem conjuntament per tractar aquests temes. Si nosaltres poguéssim ajudar des de Barcelona, i aquí és un tema d'humanitat global, però també, ara diré, una part també de consciència de la irrellevància que tindrà Europa en el món del 2050 i més endavant. Serem menys del 2% de la població mundial. No pintarem res en aquest món entre Xina, Estats Units i Àfrica, que tindrà tanta població com Àsia a final d'aquest segle. Si no entenem que aquest és el món cap a on anem, què podem aportar nosaltres com a Barcelona, com a ciutat? Què podem aportar? Podem ajudar moltíssim, tornem a la felicitació per aquesta jornada, en què aquestes ciutats de la ribera africana, mediterrània i de l'est d'Europa, que també tenen molta densitat poblacional i que es duplicaran d'aquí al 2050, ajudar-les a fer el que nosaltres ja sabem fer, construir clavegueram, i aquí tenim Caixa, que és un exemple de cooperació internacional. Caixa és l'empresa municipal de Barcelona que fa temes de sanejament d'aigua i més coses, i platges i temes d'aigua en general. Ajudar-les a construir ciutats més sostenibles perquè tenen més infraestructura per tractar les aigües, però també perquè construir infraestructures és aquesta cosa keynesiana, que també genera oportunitats, de manera que la gent que ve pressionant del Sahel i tal, al final es quedin en aquelles ciutats treballant perquè hi ha oportunitats, perquè són ciutats agradables per viure, que tenen en compte de la seva mitigació del canvi climàtic. Crec que Barcelona i Izmir també, com a ciutat amb 8.500 anys d'història, que es diu aviat, Barcelona 2000 something, tenim aquest deure amb el nostre entorn més proper d'ajudar-los a tenir ciutats més sostenibles perquè ens interessa, perquè si no aquesta gent acabarà venint cap aquí com puguin. I haurem d'acceptar aquestes migracions perquè també una altra cosa que sabem és que Barcelona és una ciutat que envelleix molt ràpid. Actualment a Barcelona hi ha més gossos que nens de menys de 16 anys, una població molt envellida. La població poblacional de Barcelona aviat començarà a fer així, per moltes raons interconnectades, desigualtats, moltes coses, i com a europeus hem de fer una reflexió de com volem compensar aquests desequilibris poblacionals i què farem de la nostra ciutat cara al futur. Som un exemple que molta gent ens mira, però aviat deixarem de ser, serem alguna cosa bastant irrellevant en el món. Jo crec que aquesta cultura europea, que és la cuna de les polis i de les ciutats també, i mediterrània, no diria europea, perdó, perquè la cuna de les ciutats potser està més en Turquia i Grècia, però tenim una gran cultura mediterrània conjunta que hem de cuidar i hem d'exportar d'altres zones del món que tenen molt, col·laborar, tampoc vull ser aquesta però sí que tenim molt a oferir en aquest sentit i ens va la sostenibilitat de la Mediterrània en ello, tant a nivell ambiental com a nivell social.
Moltes gràcies, i crec que és un missatge molt potent per tancar la sessió. Voldria agrair de nou als dos ponents, a la Bàrbara i al Mert, especially Mert for coming from abroad, per la vostra participació avui, també a l'IEMed i a la Fundació La Caixa per organitzar aquesta jornada, i a tots vostès per haver participat també en el debat amb aquestes preguntes tan interessants i tan breus i tan directes, i esperem poder-nos retrobar en el que serà el 5è diàleg d'aquesta sèrie. Bona tarda a tothom.